Welcome to the Art Lady channel. Today's lesson is on pressed texture clay angels. And we're going to be making these out of ceramic clay. And this is the fast version of this lesson. If you want the longer lesson that explains in detail the processes, I have another one on the internet, and it's the long version of the pressed texture clay angel. For this purpose, I use this with my kids in class, and I hand them a worksheet after they've viewed the video that reminds them of the steps. You could also pause the video as you go along if you want the quick version. This is for kids who already know how to use clay and the terminologies. The long version is an introduction version. I start off this lesson by giving each student a cube of clay 2 inches wide, a 2-inch cube that I've cut. From there, they pull off a piece of clay the size of a strawberry. We pull off from the cube a piece of clay the size of a grape, and we pull off a piece of clay the size of a blueberry. And I have the kids match on laminated sheets to make sure their blobs are correct sizes. From there, we take the leftover blob, I'll pull mine off, and we're going to roll this into a ball. And when we roll balls, it's a 10-second ball if it's large, and then the smaller ones will be a few second roll. So we count in seconds how much we roll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. The reason we do this is because some kids over roll and dry out that clay, and dry clay is not good. We cannot use dry clay. So each one of these shapes we roll now into a ball. The smaller one is going to be the strawberry shape will be a 5-second ball. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I count fast. This will be a 2-second ball. So roll 1, 2. 2, 1, 2. And now that we have all our balls lined up, we're ready to assemble this. Go ahead, take the largest one. We flatten the largest ball. And I'm flattening with my palms and pushing in. I flip over like I'm cooking a pancake. Flip it over and flatten. Sometimes I just press this way. I don't want smashing and pounding because that gives unevenness to the clay, and I want it to be evened and flat. I keep on flipping over until I get a nice evened cookie. Now, you want to measure, if you take your pinky finger, place it down, the thickness of your pinky finger should be the thickness of the clay, and that's about a little bit over a 1/4 inch. So if you press this down and measure, you measure with your pinky. It has to be, it cannot be fatter than your pinky. And so you want it to be a little bit thinner, which is a 1/4 inch. Now I'm going to take this will become the angel dress. The next one that I'm going to flatten is the halo, and that's the strawberry size. Take your palm, actually with this it's small, I'm going to just kind of make a fist, and with the large part of my hand here, I'm just going to press. And then I'll flip over and press again. Make sure the center is as thick as the edges. You don't want your edges to be really skinny. And then I'm going to overlap this on top, and I'm going to overlap it about a 1/2 inch. So you can measure down. If you want to take your pinky finger, measure down, put a little mark. That's where you want to have at least overlap a 1/2 inch. And where the two overlap, I'm going to press here so I can kind of see my cookie shape, the dress shape here. Now where the two overlap, I'm going to be blending this. I'm going to be blending it down and blending it in. I'm going to be joining these two pieces of clay. Now this clay is very wet, so I don't need to score and slip. If your clay is dry, you're going to need to score and slip this. I found that when I'm working with real wet clay, we don't need to do that. we're going to join the seam on the back as well. So I'm taking a tool and I'm bringing in, and you can even use your finger, I'm bringing in the clay from the dress to the halo, and vice versa, bringing it back and forth. Then smooth it with your finger. When you're smoothing these joints, make sure you're not using a lot of pressure, because I don't want this area to be thinner than 1/4 inch. I'm going to turn this over now. If you want to give a little pinch here, make sure you didn't lose that shape. Now I'm taking the size of a grape, and the grape I'm going to place on top of the area where both circles meet. So where the halo meets the dress, I place this right on top, and I'm giving it a light push. If you want to add a little slip underneath, that's up to you. I'm giving it a light push just so that both clays are bonded together. Now I'm not going to blend these areas because it's going to be covered with some hair, and that'll help bond all that together. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold in my dress. So I'm going to take my finger, this is the hardest part of this, I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to rest my index finger underneath the top 1/4 of the circle. So if I divide the circle in half and in half again, I'll have 4, you can kind of see, 4 sections of the circle. So in the top 1/4 section of the circle, my finger is underneath it. And I'm going to press now down. So my finger isn't underneath the bottom of the circle. So I'm going to press here, and I'm going to move this finger in toward the center of the dress. So I'm folding. That's how I fold this. And then I slowly bring it down so that I'm not cracking anything. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. If you need to flip it up and around, you can. But it's basically you put your finger here, a finger underneath the top 1/4 of the circle, and as you bend, you're bending in toward the center, and then press lightly. Now, you can see from my rolling that I do have some, uneven cracks and stuff. Don't worry about this. This will be covered with our press texture. Sometimes we have a little cracking here. Just fill it in with your finger and smooth it with your finger. That's okay. Same thing on this side. You can kind of press her. If you want to push with both fingers in toward the head, or squeeze it like this, wrap it around her head and then press down, to get a little better shape, you can. Now I'm going to put the hair on. So I'm going to take and I'm going to roll a coil. And again, in the longer version, it teaches you how to roll a coil. And your coils should always be rolled really fast, because you don't want to dry that coil out, because then you can't bend it. So then you bend it and press it and wrap it around the head. Now, if you want to roll longer ones, you can roll longer ones. You can design the hair any way you want. I'm just going to flip up my corners, my edges here for her. And then I like blending it in on here a little bit, on her. I bring it to the head a little bit. Okay, now we're ready for some press texture. I take my texture mat, place it on top, rub it lightly so I can feel it engaged into that clay. Don't press too hard, otherwise it all smashes. And then I'm rubbing in a little bit in here too. Give a little pattern. Now, if you don't have a rubber texture thing, you can use rubber stamps. You can use found objects to add texture. A lot of my students added texture with just poking in the tools, and I'll show you that in a minute. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add the face. And for the face, I take a wood tool pointed. You can also use a pencil. I press 2 holes for the eyes, and the singing angel I take and I press down straight, and I rock it down and up, and I have a little singing mouth right there for my singing angel. And now I always poke the holes in, and I use a needle tube for that, I poke it in, I'll show you with this, at least a 1/2 inch down. That way, in case there's any weakness here. So if you're doing this in a classroom situation, your teacher might want to do this for you. I poke in my hole for hanging, and then you can decorate this any way you want to. You can scratch in pattern for hair. I'll show you on this one. You can scratch in hair pattern, and I'll show you some of my kids, what they did. And these are not finished yet. We have not fired them. And of course we have not painted them. And then we'll add feathers to the back with some hot glue after they've painted them, and they'll go home like that. You could also use some coils and attach wings if you prefer. Again, making sure you blend the clays in on the back. You can do this very carefully if you're going to add some texture to the halos. You can see how this is a little bit too deep. This could possibly cause cracks or weakness. But here's some examples that the kids have made here. You can see all the different kinds of patterning and texture. This student put a Bible on hers. If you did not want to use the rubber textures, this student just decided to press in her own textures using the back of the tool and the point of the tool. And she decided to do wider eyes. I mean, it's up to you how you want to do this. And this one's precious here with the little crosses. So it's up to you. This one added bows. So you're taking the process and making it your own original art. Oh, this little bow came off here. Here's another book, and this child put a little necklace on. And I did want to show you this one here. Look at this. This is a little heart mouth. So if you want to come up and invent your own, you can add your own little twist to it. And I hope you enjoy the pressed texture Clay Angels. And if you like the videos, please subscribe. And again, you can check out my worksheets.